All right, hey everybody. I'm going to give a little bit of a walkthrough or talk through of the Littoral Commander Australia up upgrade or expansion, I guess is a better word for it. Includes the Australian Defence Force additional trackers, 100 additional cards. We can take a quick look comparison-wise, component-wise here. Okay. So first and foremost, I'm gonna walk through the differences, the delta, if you will, of this supplement. Right? It's definitely it's an expansion specific to the second edition. It actually shows up on PTG as version 1.7, which but I take that to be the 2.0 printed rules as printed for the second edition, which I think is in motion right now. I think it's under manufacture. Australia is being manufactured right now as well. I think they're both to be distributed by end of February to the U.S. at least. I don't know the timing for other locations, but just for comparison's sake, you do get a set of additional cubes. You get the rule book, which is a scenario book as well, so you don't have it's not separate, so it's easy to flip through. You get 4 new maps, one of which is Timor Leste or East, Timor East, or Timor as we just generally call it. Depicts the Banda and Timor Sea, the edge of Indonesia. As you can see, these are the national boundaries. This is a portion of Timor. I didn't realize that before playing this. That's nice. So learn something. Learning game. All right. Let's go back to the rules real quick, and we'll roll through these. The overall summary and disclaimer doesn't change much. I do want to definitely point out that Robert Engen and Scott Jenkinson were, as well as Sebastian Bay, of course, were the primary designers on this expansion, this rules expansion or supplement. And just to call that out, there's a description of both there. As you can see, this is kind of like the basic and expert set of original Dungeons and Dragons, if you will excuse the reference, but I think it's appropriate that you know they combine. They literally combine. If you could kind of spiral notebook both, you could literally. I mean, well, not actually literally because they didn't really design it that way, but the new one, the Australia, comes with a nice quick start summary to kind of give you most of what you need without having to reread the whole set of the original IP rules. Really, I mean, you could probably get away with GMing your first basic game with the quick start at the top here. Nothing has really changed as far as maybe some slight graphical upgrades on the unit cards a little bit, just to kind of make them more accessibility friendly. The maps as well have been upgraded to be more user acceptable, accessibility, not acceptable, accessibility mindful, which I appreciate. I have friends that are colorblind, and I constantly battle with them as to which color they will be on a game. So it's kind of that's close to heart that we do take advantage, not take advantage, but take the colorblind into account. The other part that comes with the game is the trifold player aid. I don't know when that was introduced. I think it was introduced with Baltic, and then it was reintroduced with Indo-Pac V2 version 2. But this is kind of goes through the turn flow, has a nice summary of what affects the influence meter, etc. There's actually there's a better example of impulsing in the book itself. As a matter of fact, let's go look at that real quick. Yeah, here. This is a little. Oop, no, that's the player aid. There we go. There's a little bit of a better sequence diagram here that shows, as far as the actions are concerned, the sequence of play. This kind of highlights that, with each impulse, one of the players, one of the task groups, as initially defined in the scenario, does their 3 action points worth of core actions, and then it switches to one of the task groups in the other player side. The one thing to note is that when you do flip that, or each overall turn, you can flip who goes first as far as your side. Initiative, usually there's a full initiative check, which is after all the actions, which just determines for the next turn, quotation mark, who has the initiative. And again, that's done by, very basically, the team that destroyed the most enemy units, not counting MILDEC or military deception counters during the turn, gains the initiative. And then, of course, the first turn, it's usually defined by the scenario. Okay. So again, just as quick initial summary, the quick start is a new section, which really kind of gives you in one spot most of what you need to get going without having to reread the entirety of the IPv2 rules. All right, where we start to see new, excuse me, as I roll, but again, 2 base scenario setup, as you can see, is not significantly different. Again, you place a turn marker, influence meter, if in fact most of the baseline low scenarios are they turn off the influence meter, and they usually turn off subs and turn off subs and special ops forces, usually soft forces. So some of those green cards are not available. And as a matter of fact, the one that we're going to look at, this scenario overall is called Neptune's Rage. It's a basic, relatively balanced or even naval engagement primarily. Of course, you might have a little bit of land stuff kind of mixing in with the JCC cards, the joint capability cards. So there might be some stuff coming from like ballistic or anti-ballistic or radar, whatever. So influential enablers, if you will, from kind of outside the naval realm, but you'll see. Again, that's the name of the game, Littoral Commander. It's very much a sea to land environment. It's a very good mix of both. It's the best Littoral game on the market to date. I would even argue it's one of the best in the overall war games in the past decade plus. Obviously arguable to taste, but just as far as its fundamental usefulness, its expandability, etc., and just the fact that this expansion exists is an example of its flexibility. Right? To get out of the pontification mode. All right, so again, 2.0 doesn't really change. The sequence of play, as you can see, in the Australia supplement, it skips. It only is going to show you delta at this point. So up to about here, this is again a quick play overview, so you don't have to reread the entirety of of the Indo-Pac rules. But then it just kind of describes the newness of just what to expect. Again, there's a new Aussie deck that I'll show you. I'll actually show you directly. We'll slow roll that deck to kind of show you what the new stuff is. So you can kind of see where you're going to get in your game box when you get it. Sequence of play has not changed. The initial turn before you start has a planning and a deployment. And we'll take a look at the Neptune's Rage scenario just for example's sake here in a little bit. Let me grab a small drink of water here. Parched. Okay. All right. So component-wise, I'm gonna kind of just read maybe the first line of just a few lines of each paragraph here. Just components. Let's see. how that. So nothing really has changed in the sequence of play, which is nice. So it's just, again, this is an upgrade to the game, not a rewrite of the rules. There are some additional things you can do. Component-wise, mill deck and counters per 422 in the original rules. Let's go just kind of line that up. Okay, yeah. However, national mill decks cannot protect or absorb damage from different national forces. Something just something in general that differs with the Australia expansion is that they really wanted to concentrate on joint force, cooperation and joint force planning, and these no matter how well you ally with one another, right? There are different strategic and tactical doctrine involved, and just getting used to working with each other, etc. And then you'll see when we look at the interoperability network, which is represented by a new card, which is right here. Let's take a look. Play when using multinational forces and place the corresponding national markers on this JCC. Place the number of black cubes as determined by the scenario. The scenario we're doing, Neptune's Rage, has 2. Alright, so if we look down further, the number of cubes determines the effect. So with 2 black cubes from the scenario definition, we reduce by 2 any LRS values for targets revealed by the allied force. So if, and more often, okay, so there's 2 ways that your nationality would be the revealer, right? For naval, just generic zone of control base revealing. If, for example, the Australian surface unit was within 5 hexes of a plan, PLAN, China, a Chinese surface group, for example, or carrier group, then that would have been revealed by them. The other things that there are JCCs, there are joint capability cards that reveal the enemy, and when you play one of your cards, one of your nation's cards, that of which the result is revealing the enemy, then you place one of these next to that target stack. A stack can be 1 unit or any number of units. There is no stacking limit in this. There's an implied setup. Okay, when you set up a scenario, you're here. I'll just kind of show you here from Neptune's Rage. Let's say here's plan side. So in this case, I've marked that Task Force Zhongzhou can deploy within 4 hexes of this marker, just per the scenario. We'll take a look at the scenario later. The Tianjin can deploy within 4 hexes of this, and what that means is that all of the composing individual units. This is Zhuangzhou. These 3 here, these unit trackers here, represent Zhuangzhou. These 3 here represent Task Force Tianjin, at least as initially deployed. They can go anywhere. They initially deploy. You can deploy them into the same hex. And there is benefit to that in the fact that it costs less to move the stack. But if you want to kind of use some of the more modern DMO or distributed maritime operation guidelines and kind of spread things out, for lack of a better term, so you're not like a big juicy target. So big juicy target is not only is 2 things, right? It's for revealing sake, and it's for obviously then a subsequent targeting sake. So if you recall from the original rules, a unit has to be revealed in order to be targetable, right? Most naval rules do that. So yeah, great game. Littoral Commander, the original, is great, and this expands it very nicely. Definitely get it if you own the original. I fully recommend getting this. Let's see. Movement. There is an addition. I'm not going to go through it too deeply here. I might do like a subsequent, more detailed, ground-oriented scenario. This is just this Neptune's Rage, as the title suggests, is a very naval-oriented, just quick lesson game. But there's a new movement, a new unit category, which is a dismounted light infantry or a towed artillery unit. Those are, you can see these D hex markers, and the easiest way to kind of recognize how they work necessarily is that the dismounted units cannot take a move action out of core. With the time scale involved, these hexes are 20 kilometers in width, so that's the equivalent of roughly 10 nautical miles for you naval folk. Dismounted units are not placed on the map when deployed, initially tracked by pen and paper only, and then they're revealed per 524, which is here. A dismounted unit that is concealed does not appear on the map. Instead, the player who owns the dismounted unit should keep track of the hex position of the unit. During the deployment stage, dismounted units may deploy to a red hex if it also obeys the deployment instruction within this hour. Okay. A dismounted unit that is revealed by ISR or an enemy unit's Zor is placed on the map. There you go. Sorry. There's an example there. When JCC attempts to reveal concealed and/or suspected dismounted units in a hack, suspected, right? Their success rate is halved, rounding down. For instance, but JCC normally needs 113. Oh, okay, that's interesting too. Again, I haven't dug too much into this, but just so you know, there's a new movement. There's a new unit category, dismounted units. Very interesting. I like it. I like the addition of this. It expands the rules nicely, just in general. Let's go down to, again, there's not much difference. I mean, everything else about movement is the same. This is really just a new movement category, which is they don't move. They need to, in order to be moved, troops on foot or with towed howitzers are effectively immobile without other attached transport represented by JCC or joint capability cars. I definitely understand that about the artillery. I think it's more of a specifically to the dismounted infantry, foot troops, foot soldiers there. I think it's sort of intentional, just based on the timing involved in these scenarios. I think it's just kind of an intentional. You need to have transport, generally speaking, to get them to go 20k. Makes sense, yeah. Otherwise, it'll take you at least I don't know, whatever, good day to get across that on foot. It's been, especially on some of these hexes, are other than clear, and they're very exposed as such. All right, so that's again basically a new unit type is defined for movement's sake. All right, so let's go down here to LRS. LRS 2 for HIMARS represents ATACMS ballistic long-range missile. Therefore, LRS 2 for the Aussie HIMARS requires BMD intercept. There's a shortened rotation on their respective unit trackers. So there's no rule changes for, let's kind of line up here as far as combat. There's no real rule changes there. Now here is, okay, so here's where things get interesting with kind of unique rules. Tactical network cards. When a team is composed of multiple national forces, each national force deploys their own version of the TACnet. Any degradation of a nation's TACnet represented by opposing cubes only affects that nation. I mean, again, the main thing added within this is cooperations and then uniqueness of joint capabilities, as well as uniqueness of the available pool. By default, the allies, if you will, or the blue team, is in this scenario in particular, composed of both Australian and U.S. forces. So each of them would have a deployed TACnet. But then, when a team is composed of multinational forces, you must play the interoperability card. And again, I think I showed that before, but the scenario states how many black cubes to put on it. The Neptune's Rage says to place 2. And let me show this again. I already showed the effect of this. Your LRS value for targets revealed by your ally is basically, at least by default for this scenario, reduced by 2. There is a way to counter that. There might be JCCs I haven't seen, but by ruling there is right here. During the first planning stage, your team may pay 5 CP to attempt to increase interoperability, removing a colored cube, and there's only a chance. So this is on a D20. So that's a significant risk. Maybe it's worth taking depending on the situation or the scenario or how much interoperability you need or must use. But that's a pretty high cost when your nation, if you play it even Steven, the first in Neptune's Rage in particular scenario, there are 12 CPs or cost points. I want to make sure that's making sure that's the right word for that. CPs, I think it's cost points. Command points. There it is. Sorry. Command points. That's a pretty, if you split it, as you're planning, you're splitting it 6 to 6 between Australia and US. That's pretty costly for just gaining. It's good. But I don't know. I think it's dependent upon the scenario. If it was like 3 cube scenario where there was like a lot of newly joined forces that haven't really done joint operations together, that's probably when the scenario would depict it as 3. You might want to do that because that gets a little costly at that point, right? With 3 cubes. Let's see. 3, you would reduce 4. 4 a DRM or a dice roll modifier or a modifier to that ORS value 4. That's significant. 2, it's not great, but whatever. It's joint operations, right? So I really like what they did there, and I like that they made it as generally compressed and simple as the rules overall, the approach the rules take in general. So let's keep going here. What is it? Interrupt. Affects all ORS values. That's all the things. Each time a national force reveals, this kind of just describes what you do. You put a national marker next to it. When a player conducts LRS against a target with their national marker, resolve it normally. If you do it against one that's your ally, then you take the hit from the black cubes on the interrupt card. All right, so then this is interesting. So when an enemy unit or stack conceals, when they do a core action of conceal, they can do a move and conceal or a conceal, remove any national markers associated with it. So that kind of resets. So in other words, whoever reveals is really the revealer. Makes sense. Okay. Interoperability network, no effect on ground assault CVs due to the scale of the game system and desire to avoid unnecessary complexity. Okay. Logistics units cannot resupply units from different national forces. That's generally how things are kind of separated. Anyway, I'm sure if you really, wanted to adjust a scenario, you could probably negate that rule or adjust that rule. Torpedo attacks of submarines are not affected by interoperability network. However, submarines may only conduct torpedo attacks against targets it has revealed or by, okay. Okay, well, I mean, it makes sense because their communication networks are probably incompatible with the encryption and so forth going on. All right, proprietary, communication makes sense. You normally would have to go like HQ to HQ to communicate a need of some form. Naval gunfire. I haven't really looked too much at this. All naval guns have a combat value of 1 to 6, range of 0, same hex, and infinite supply. For naval gunfire, player may roll up to 4 dice per unit conducting a naval gunfire. Combat actions reveals the attacker. Naval gunfire cannot be intercepted, and light ground assault dice must be allocated to specific targets. Okay, only naval units with organic LRS CPs can conduct naval. Okay, well that makes sense. This means amphibious ships cannot conduct naval fire. I don't know, that makes sense. Only against 1 hex. Simultaneously after you start. Okay, all right. So, let's see. Yeah, the LRS values are normally, so they just kind of compressed it all to an LRS, a combat value. Let me go look at some of the new Australian ones and see if they mention a combat value. Well, and a 5-inch gun. I mean, they mentioned a 5-inch gun, but what is the combat value for it? This is the actual printed LRS, which is the red square, only represents the VLS, which are finite in number in some circuits. Standard naval gunfire in LC is light ground assault. All naval guns have a combat value of 1 to 6, a range of 0, and an infinite supply. But what is the combat value of the 5-inch? Okay, I'll look that up later. I will put a comment on this video with an answer to that. I can get one from the Sebastian if necessary, but I'll do a little deeper search on it. Right. Shore bombardment. Shore-based targets. I mean, what's the difference there? Yeah, okay. Rule is identical. Grounders do not make defensive intercept rolls to make sense. Based on the speed of the shells. Artillery direct fire. Modern companies are seeing LRS intercept. Normally, according to 716, units with ground assault CVs cannot respond to units that are attacking them with ground assault. However, in certain cases, due to proficiency or terrain, self-propelled or mobile artillery can engage in direct fire against close combat. This rule accounts for this nuance. So a self-propelled or mobile cannon artillery may use artillery direct fire as its or in response to enemy ground assault. I think this is new right here. Okay. All right. We don't have any of that in this scenario, so don't worry about it. Dismounted infantry ambush. This is new based on that new unit type as outlined in 5.2. A concealed dismounted unit does not have its counter placed. Instead, blah, blah, blah. If an enemy ground unit enters or attempts to pass through a hex containing a concealed dismounted infantry unit, the player controlling the dismounted may choose to have it launch an ambush. They may also choose to let the enemy bypass them unaware. This can occur if the concealed dismounted unit is not revealed by enemies or JCC. An ambush is a special action that interrupts the enemy turn and temporarily halts the enemy's intended temporarily. It's a keyword there. All right. Launching an ambush does not cost an AP. Going up to 2 other guns. Okay. Each dice succeeds on a 1 to 9 and inflicts 1 each. Okay, so attached JCCs that improve ambushing units ground assault CB is added to the 1 to 9 ambush CB. Okay. Maybe what they meant then up here. I'm sorry. It's a 6 CV. I think that's what was meant here. Where did that go? Right here. So the CV is actually 6. So on a roll of 1 to 6 on a D20, I think that's what it meant there. That's actually, I would consider that a typo, really. That's okay. So that explains that. Sorry. All right. So then, GCCs. Okay, so this is what we already talked about before. But when using multiple national forces within a single team, the player may only select and use JCCs from their national JCCs. So I'll give you an example of this in this scenario. So this is unique from this, even though it's the same card. This as you can see in the bottom right corner here, all the USMC cards have their own unique. There's a unique US deck, and that's card 33 of that deck, right? Very nice that they do that, by the way, because it's a lot easier to kind of describe what you're looking at. But there's also a limited number in the set, so you can't get more than what is included in the set. So there's only a certain number available for purchase with your command points, your CPs. But as you can see, this is from the newer Australia deck, which we'll take a look at here in a moment more closely. But again, as you can see here, requires a Hobart class destroyer, guided missile destroyer, or Hunter class guided missile frigate, using an orange cube, indicate a supply of 3 on the tracker. For every BMD intercept attempt, reduce it by 1. So this is very similar to the US-based SM-3, the Standard Missile 3 interception with Aegis integrated system. Same thing. Really, it's the same system. It's just a unique card for their. So you do have a separate USMC or US deck of JCCs, and then this is the newer Australia. I think that's all I'll go over as far as the rules differences, meaning that there's a few other things here for submarine operations and influence meter. Yeah, this is jointly done. That's probably one of the only multinational that's jointly done. When influence is tracked separately from in the scenario, then use the respective. This means that individual national forces can separately achieve different benefits from the influence, but in both cases, when the opposing team positively gains influence, then all opposing. I'm assuming that's depicted in the. Okay, ASW. For any submarine for the Hobart can conduct ASW per normal rules. The Australian ANZAC and Hunter may conduct AS if they have the Hilo JCC. Interesting. Hunter has it for free. Also noted on the tracker, Canberra LHD can also conduct ASW if the Hilo ASW JCC is embarked. That's interesting too. Makes sense. The LHDs are the larger troop carrying amphibious operation ships, so that makes sense. All right, so the scenario that we are going to be just taking a quick look at, I don't think I'm going to get into it. I'm going to just stick with looking at the JCCs, and I might do I think I'll do a separate recording with actual players and having them choose their JCCs and such. But for this, let me just go into, for this kind of just more intro, the Delta, let me open take a look at the new deck, all right? Because I think folks that have paid for the backed the Australia upgrade. We're probably most interested in seeing what's available. Some of these, good amount of them are existing. No real changes here. ADF Joint Command. This is the tactical network card that's deployed for this nation. As we showed in our little rules delta talk through there, you deploy one of these per nation, and then if you are in a multinational scenario, which this Neptune's Rage will be or is, you have to you must play the interoperability network, in which case the scenario dictates the starting number of blocks. There are JCCs that can affect this, but there's also that ruling where you can spend 5 CP at the beginning. I find that I don't know. I think I'll make an umpire's judgment here. I think I would probably rule that by the scenario, right? I think that's more of a scenario thing. It just feels a little bit too forced. It's like, I don't know. I think it might indirectly steer new players to try to use that no matter what, and that would eat up all their CP, and they'd probably lose pretty miserably. I don't know. I just, if it's a two, if it's, I think as I was saying before, if it's a two black cube interop situation from the scenario, that's you're losing two LRS for the LRS ability. It's not horrible, and that kind of represents probably Australia and US, that we've done a lot of joint operations with them and generally compatible Link 16 systems, etc. But all right, so that's that. Surveillance, which I think already existed. Precision strike missile, kind of goes slow through this. Combat air patrols, that's an existing card. The Growler, which I think is new, or it was depicted by a different airframe. Hercules, Naval Deception, again, existing. Military Deception. The nice things about those two cards, they're not too costly, and they give you a good amount of deployable mil deck counters. This is the Hilo ASW that was mentioned. That certain one of the classes, I can't remember the answer. I think it was the Hunter class, gets that by default, and the unit tracker card describes that. Ground sensors, host nation support. Interesting. Close air support. Land X, that's nice. I like how they separated that a little bit. Humanitarian operations. Torpedo attack. This is kind of I like this one because it kind of caps the sub activity without. Okay, so you don't have like you don't have to track it, right? So this is kind of a nice JCC. It's normally still allowed. It kind of brings subs into the scenario without it oversaturating the decision making. So this is a nice one. I actually have set up Australia with this for this at least default demo, just that people didn't have to necessarily go in and pick. Where was I? Yeah, the ADF employs the U.S. developed long-range hypersonic weapon, the a hypersonic surface attack missile. Interesting. Unmanned quadcopter, drones. Combat engineers, I believe that's an existing one. Requires a ground unit. These are attachable. Means it's persistent. Attachable, requires a ground unit, permanently increases ground unit. Anti-tank missile, interesting. Javelin. Naval mine clearing. Integrator drone. The integrator is a tactical UAS or uncrewed aerial system used for battlefield surveillance. Requires a ground unit. Place the ISR marker on the host. May move 3x a turn. Just basically like the core rules. Counter mobility ops, unmanned underwater ISR, logistical resiliency, joint fires, very good. Oh, cool. That's a cool one. That's a new. Coordinated deception, deep strike. I think that's an older one, but he had to fill it up with a certain amount of core cards. Open source intel, unmanned logistics, signal management. There are 100 cards, so there's a good bit to get through. So I'm going to kind of speed up just a little bit. Expeditionary logistics, unmanned ground vehicles, network resiliency, airborne early warning control, heavy lift, Virginia class sub, Collins class sub. Most of the introductory scenarios don't include those. Usually there's a sub-centric scenario that does unmanned hacking. So we're getting into some newer tech here, which is nice to see. Counter autonomy, undermine enemy AI, very cool. Counter UAS, unmanned boats, Aegis, as described before, behind enemy lines. LMVM detachment, military intelligence, unmanned, coordinated degradation. I think that's an existing one. Electromagnetic spectrum defense, existing. Cyber attack, existing. Defense of cyber, existing. Patriot, I think that was an existing one, but showing that Australian Defense Force operates it. Rocket assisted projectile. That's interesting. Interesting. I didn't even know that. Oh, okay. I do a lot of naval. I didn't even know that. All right. What's the thing? Motor transport, defense electronic, cyber, I'll let you read. Tactical cyber defenses, vertical insertion, some helo assault, cyber disruption, space satellites, rotary attack, rotary lift, amphibious LCM, naval strikes, combined task force, strike master, equipped with the NSM. The strike master enables ground. Oh, it's nice. Hornet's nest, nice. It's kind of like more of a sortie based card. I like it. Logistics support. Pause the video later if you want to look at some of these a little bit more. Ghost bat on man. I think that's an existing one. Precision strike. I think it's an existing. Naval deception. They give you some extra Mildex, extra helo ASWs, extra unmans. This is where we start seeing all the extra. There's mines, motor transport. Just most of the ones at the bottom are at the bottom of the numbers or top of the numbers. The highest numbers are the repeats of things to designate what's available. I think I'm going to keep it at that, just because I'd rather get us some players playing this out together. Just to kind of show you again, the network cards are out. There's an Anzac class, Hobart class, and a Hunter class for the Australians. There are the DDGX on 2 Arleigh Burkes for the U.S. Navy. Over for the plan side, we have a Type 54, 52D, and the lovely Type 55s, which are very nice. And those have inherent intrinsic ballistic missile defense, or BMD, very similar to the Aegis. Those are useful for, again, ballistic missile defense. So if somebody plays a GCC card, which is a ballistic missile or hypersonic missile, then it has a chance at intercepting. Here's the starting points. Blue team, blue side, Task Force San Francisco, which is the U.S. one, starts within 4 of this. Brisbane starts within 4 of that. And I think I already explained the plan. Well, that's about it. I have some markers for mill deck and or task forces. If we as a player group decide to keep Fog of War a little bit more intensive, we could just put individual markers out there, and then you won't really know how many are there in that stack. I tend to do that, and then I kind of keep information either on a piece of paper or as a right-click text as to what it represents, etc. That's it. It's a great game. The rules themselves haven't been changed. Specifically, the version 2, which are the version 2 Indo-Pac rules, which are aligned with Littoral Commander Baltic. So all three are compatible now, right? So if you own Baltic and you own the upgraded Indo-Pac, there is you can get an upgrade pack for it. I personally have my original physical. I don't have the upgrade pack yet because I just don't need it. I mean, I play it whatever. I own it all, but I play it mostly digital. Sorry, earmuffs, Sebastian. Yeah, but then the Australia upgrade is basically directly side by side or with the LCIP upgraded version, and it's all compatible. So you can kind of work in some what ifs with Russia if you wanted to, and in Indo-Pac or in other Pacific region maps, and yeah, that's it. It's a really nice system. I hope I covered it reasonably well there. Again, it's a delta. It's mostly just additions, additional things, additional rules, and kind of handles joint operations pretty well and simply. I like that. It matches the complexity of the rules in general, right? You don't want your tack on rules or upgrades to be more detailed necessarily or more complex than the core rules, and I think they've nailed it here as far as aligning the game